On Christmas, filmmaker and activist Michael Moore posted a fiery message addressed to all continuing supporters of Benjamin Netanyahu and the Israeli government, asking them when the bloodshed, the carnage that they see in Gaza will finally, at long last, be enough. And obviously, I know your experience with Michael Moore goes way back. So as soon as I saw that, I was curious what you made of it.
Yeah, I thought, oh, they're gonna pummel him for saying things that are obviously true. And we're gonna prove it to you actually in the numbers here. New York Times did a story that I think has two amazing parts that I wanna tell you about.
Yeah, well, why don't we turn to his piece that he posted on Substack titled "In the Holy Land, Just a Couple of Dead Catholics." And in this post, which you could read, he explains how last Christmas, two Palestinian women, a mother and a grandmother from the same family, were both killed by IDF snipers while attending Christmas Mass. An Israeli tank then fired at the church, obliterating most of it. And we're gonna bring up a photo of the two women. You can see them right there, Nahida Khalil Anton and Samar Kamal Anton. And I will never stop being amazed by how many individual stories, vignettes from this conflict are each individually the worst thing you've ever heard. Like if you only knew one thing about the violence in Gaza, and it was that two women had been gunned down by snipers and then a tank blew up a church on Christmas, I think that's kind of all that you need to know at that point. And that is just one tiny little, that's one of the things that happened of thousands of incidents just as horrific, if not more horrific, with death tolls as high, if not higher. And in this piece, he used this case study to ask people why they continue supporting these actions. He says, one last request of the pro-Netanyahu crowd: the death toll of the innocents murdered in Gaza and the West Bank is now nearing 50,000. The vast majority of them babies, children, women, and the elderly. Can you please just give me a number as to when your thirst for revenge and blood will be satiated? Of the 1,200 slaughtered by Hamas fighters on October 7th, 2023, how many more Palestinian civilians need to be executed? I know there has to be a number. Would another 100,000 do? A million? Just give us a number so we know when this can end. And how many people can we Americans go kill in Guatemala tonight so we can avenge the death of the woman on the New York City subway last week who died when that Guatemalan migrant set her body on fire? Would it not be righteous of us to just drop an atomic bomb on Guatemala and wipe them all out? I want blood. I want the blood of Guatemalans dripping from my mouth. Justice, revenge, more murder. Yes. Oh, it feels so good during the holidays. So obviously, he evokes strong images there. But I remember asking like the same question on the show, and I don't know if the death toll was 12,000 or 22,000 or 30,000. Probably brought up this point at every one of those, but how many does it need to be? How many does it? And he's obviously feeling pretty cynical in that message, Michael Moore. But I also think maybe he's being too optimistic to think that there's any number. Maybe it's just more for longer. Keep doing it. I don't care. It'll be this Christmas, and maybe another church will be blown up by a tank shell next Christmas, and then a mosque, and we'll just keep going forever for some reason. And it's depressing that we're still here. It's been more than a year now, and it's still just getting worse as we reach the grim milestone of 50,000.
Yes, so this New York Times story has tons and tons of interesting facts, which I'm gonna read you in a second. But I want you to understand the context. So as they are doing this, they are always trying to placate pro-Israeli critics of the New York Times. You could read it in every other paragraph. They're like, but Israel says they're following the law. Then they prove definitively that they are not following international law, and it's one of the worst bombing campaigns. In fact, it's literally the worst bombing campaign of this century, right? But here's a good example of how they write it. They say, this is right in the subheading: surprised by October 7th and fearful of another attack, Israel weakened safeguards meant to protect non-combatants, allowing officers to endanger up to 20 people in each airstrike. And then they say one of the deadliest bombardments of the 21st century followed. So as they prove how deadly and indiscriminate the bombings were, they keep saying, no, because they were fearful and there's nothing they could do, and the non-combatants and the combatants, but just say it, for God's sake, say it. I know. There'll be pro-Israeli people here who will say, oh, anti-Semite, and how dare you, and our beloved ally. But the facts overwhelmingly prove this is one of the biggest acts of terrorism of our lifetime. So why do I say that? You know, the Israeli defenders say, oh, would we do roof knocks where we warn people that we're about to bomb them? I mean, you can't get any more moral than that. And the New York Times explains they're not doing roof knocks at all. So they stopped right in the beginning, and they have been doing roof knocks for a long, long time. They just keep saying it even though they're not doing it. Then they're using 1-ton bombs. And they used so many 1-ton bombs in the beginning of the campaign that they started running out. That's why they went to America and said, give me $26 billion more. I haven't killed enough Palestinians yet. So that's why I can't agree with my brother Michael Moore more. When is it enough? You killed 50,000. Is it not enough? Do you need 500,000 dead? How many Palestinians do you have to keep murdering before it's enough? Okay, more. They had a rule of, we are expanding to, you can now kill 500 civilians a day. And then you know what they did? They lifted it. They're like, no, it's too little. You know, on October 7th, there was about 860 civilians killed. The rest were military. Like, you never hear that, right? Hamas also targeted the military and killed a bunch of soldiers. I don't want them killing anyone, right? But okay, 860, that's terrible. We've been unequivocal about it. Terrible that you kill those poor civilians, including some children, okay? Israel is saying, not saying they did it, blow past that in just 2 days. And these are now, they ran out of vetted targets within days of the air campaign. The rest were all unvetted. So then they started using artificial intelligence. And they're like, I don't know, that guy that we've had on a list somewhere, we never proved that he was a militant, but he called another guy and that guy called another lady, and we just bombed that house and murdered 28 people in it. Oh, golly gee, we're the most moral army in the world. No, this is the deadliest bombing in this century. And if you're doing the worst damage to civilians, you're killing more civilians than everyone else, you're giving orders to ignore civilian deaths, that doesn't make you the most moral army. That makes you the least moral army. And if Hamas is terrorists, and they are, for killing 860 civilians, what does that make Israel after they've killed bare minimum 35,000 civilians, including bare minimum 25,000 women and children? So stadiums full of children and women slaughtered, absolutely slaughtered, with almost no evidence that they were in any way connected to terrorists. Now, don't tell me that you're, no, I can't be a terrorist because I'm a government. I'm a state, so I can murder as many civilians as I like. No, you can't. Their self-defense stopped well over a year ago. The full last year has been nothing but a genocide, ethnic cleansing, and whole-scale slaughter by the terrorist government of Israel. Ramesh.
Yeah, there are states that engage in mass acts of terrorism, and that's exactly what we've been witnessing now for 14 months or so. And just one quick note I want everybody to note is, don't anybody think since Trump is coming into power that he will be any less lenient, or just basically he will give carte blanche, thanks to his connections to the Miriam Adelson. I know you've pointed this out to me before. He will be carte blanche, just destroy and annihilate the Palestinians. So this is not getting any better. Those AI systems that are being used that explicitly calculate how many people will be murdered and account for the decision accordingly. Basically, there's disposability of certain numbers of lives. Many of those systems were built by people like Peter Thiel and Palantir, which is one of Trump's major backers, who's want to talk about an absolute cynic about life and education. That's Peter Thiel, in my opinion, as well as those systems are being built to basically calculate the amounts of death that are involved, like the Lavender system. I think the answer to Michael Moore's letter, and your point also, Cenk, is the end game is the expulsion of as many people from Gaza, either through death or forced expulsion, as possible. Force them into refugeehood to establish what is explicitly in the Likud party charter, which is the party that had the extreme right party now one of only two really, but now become extreme right, that governs Israel, which is from the river to the sea. That is basically means what they call Greater Israel is the expulsion. So every single time we hear about a ceasefire, don't believe it. They have no interest in doing a ceasefire. Their goal is the absolute expulsion and the takeover of that land in some form or another. And also, everyone, please note, Israel's aggression has now stepped into extraterritorial, I mean, as it has for years, extraterritorial assassinations of political and military leaders in other countries, taking more and more territory now as we speak in Syria. All the horrible things that were done, indiscriminate bombing of civilians and more in Lebanon and in Beirut. And remember what has been happening also in the West Bank, where people live as second-class citizens and are often murdered by Israeli forces. So it's the end game is the expulsion of Palestinians. That's the end game through whatever means possible, which will be the murders of more and more innocent people. And I just feel so darn helpless as I sit through all this. And the only people that Netanyahu ever has to please are us, but it's not us as Americans. It's just these political leaders who, no matter what, are backing a genocide. And that's a moral stain on us as Americans, even if we don't support that. That's a moral stain on our country. And it's really difficult to live with at this point.
100%.
I mean, it always was. Yeah.
So guys, I'm gonna read you one last paragraph from the New York Times, because I think this might be the most telling of all. About, because remember, the Israeli supporters say, oh no, most moral army, we're trying so hard not to kill civilians. That's why we're not terrorists. They're terrorists when they kill us, but we're not terrorists when we kill 40 times the number of people that they kill that are civilians. So from the New York Times, Air Wars, a London-based conflict monitor, documented 136 strikes that each killed at least 15 people in October 2023 alone. That was almost 5 times the number the group has documented during any comparable period anywhere in the world since it was founded a decade ago. So they did 5 times any other bombing campaign anywhere else in the world in terms of the number of civilians killed in each of those strikes and the number of those strikes. That's not the most moral army. That is very literally the least moral army on earth. They keep slaughtering civilians time and time and time again. And all they ever do is propaganda about, oh, Hamas made us kill them all. Oh, I can't believe the rebels were inside a civilian population. Why didn't they set up barracks like a government, which we would have killed them all instantly? Excuse and propaganda over and over again. But the facts bear out the worst, most terroristic and vicious air campaign in the last 10 years, let alone a much longer period of time that hasn't been tracked. So you can make any excuse you like for Israel, but at this point, now God knows how many months after the original October 7th attack, every reasonable, sane, objective person has concluded that Israel is not defending itself. They're taking territory and slaughtering their civilian enemies in their mind. It's disgusting, it's heartbreaking, and yet America says, blank check, whether it's Biden or Trump, we will give you everything you want as long as you bribe our politicians. And let us be absolutely clear, the campaign contributions from Miriam Adelson, Sheldon Adelson, AIPAC, Democratic Majority for Israel, all of those groups are totally and utterly bribes of our politicians. Yes, the Supreme Court in its infinite corruption has legalized bribery in this country, and that allowed the supporters of Israel to wholesale buy both of our parties. And that's why that war criminal terrorist Netanyahu got standing ovation after standing ovation from the pigs who pretend to represent us, but represent Israel's far-right terrorist government instead, Young Turks. Thanks for watching the Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.